Hello and welcome. You are watching Freeology Revision. In today's video, we are looking at AQA Psychology, Paper 1. Topic 1, Attachment. In this video we are talking about the development of attachment. Infants tend to form one particularly close attachment to someone known as a primary attachment figure. This is usually a child's biological mother, but other people can fulfill the role, such as an adoptive mother, a father, a grandmother and so on. The latter of these are less likely to be primary attachment figures. Instead, a bond with them is more likely to form later, after 10 months, when the infant begins to develop multiple attachments. The multiple attachments formed by most infants vary in their strength and importance to the infant. Attachments are often structured in a hierarchy, whereby an infant may have formed 3 attachments but one may be stronger than the other 2, the primary attachment, and one may be the weakest. When separated from an attachment figure, infants may feel separation or stranger anxiety. Separation anxiety is the distress shown by an infant when separated from their caregiver, and stranger anxiety is the distress shown by an infant when approached or picked up by someone who is unfamiliar. The key study you need to know about is Schaffer and Emerson, 1964, who outlined 4 stages in the development of attachment. They studied 60 babies from Glasgow at monthly intervals for the first 18 months of life using a longitudinal method. Children were all studied in their own homes and visited monthly for approximately 1 year. The mothers were asked to keep a diary and report their infant's response to separation, for example being left alone in a room, being with other people. Results revealed that attachments were most likely to form with carers who were sensitive to the baby's signals, rather than the person they spent the most time with. For 65% of the children, the first specific attachment was to the mother. In 30%, the mother was the first joint object of attachment. The father was rarely the first sole object of attachment, only 3% of the time. But fathers were the first joint object of attachment 27% of the time. Within 6 months, the majority of infants, 78%, had developed multiple attachments. 1/3 had formed 5 or more secondary attachments. By 10 months old, most of the babies had several attachments. It was observed that the mother was the main attachment figure for roughly half of the babies when they were 18 months old and the father for most of the others. Based on this finding, this would suggest that being sensitive and responsive, including playing and communicating an infant, is more instrumental in attachment development than physical care. Schaffer's observational research led to the formulation of 4 distinct stages of developmental progress that characterize infants' attachments. Stage 1. Asocial. 0 to 6 weeks, about a month and a half. Up until 2 months, infants are asocial, in that many kinds of stimuli, both social and non-social, produce a favorable reaction, such as a smile, whether animate or inanimate. At approximately 2 months after birth, infants start to show a greater preference for social stimuli, like eyes and faces. For example, they prefer smiling faces rather than inanimate objects. Stage 2. Indiscriminate attachments. Around 4 months old. This is the beginning of attachment. Infants can distinguish between familiar and unfamiliar people. However, they are still relatively easy comforted by anyone and don't yet show stranger anxiety. They show distress when interaction ceases. Stage 3. Discriminate, or specific attachments. At 7 months old, infants form one special attachment with their primary attachment figure and show separation anxiety when apart from them, joy at reunion and are best comforted by this person. They also display stranger anxiety. Stage 4. multiple attachments. 10 months onwards. Soon after the main attachment is formed, the infant develops a wider circle of multiple attachments depending on the amount of consistent relationships they have. These are called secondary attachments, and infants also display separation anxiety in these relationships. The results of the study indicated that attachments were most likely to form with those who responded accurately to the baby's signals, not the person they spent more time with. Schaffer and Emerson called this sensitive responsiveness. By 18 months, the majority of infants have formed multiple attachments. The role of the father. Fathers are far less likely to be primary attachment figures. One theory is that men are not psychologically equipped to form an intense attachment because they lack the emotional sensitivity that women offer. The female hormone estrogen underlies caring behavior, so women, generally, are more oriented towards interpersonal goals than men. Fathers have an important role as secondary attachment figures and have a more playful, physically active relationship with their children. It may be that a lack of sensitivity from fathers can be seen as positive because it fosters problem solving by making greater communicative and cognitive demands on children. Hierman, 1994, found that men are less sensitive to infant cues. Meanwhile, while other research contradicts this. Frody, 1978, showed people videotapes of infants crying. He found no differences in the physiological responses of men and women.